How's your week?
My week was good. We got some like progress on the features that we've been launching, so that's always nice when that happens because we definitely have had weeks where we have had less progress by this point. So I'm pretty happy, although it is miserable outside, and I've gone full cozy girl mode. So I'm just like cozy girl autumn, cheese, wine, relaxing indoors. That's my buzz from now until next summer.
I know I've started rewatching Gilmore Girls and I'm like obsessed. But then the other side of me is like, I want to rewatch American Horror Story. So, like, what type of features are we working on this week?
So excitingly, we have more than one. Our promo codes, which are launched, which is great. So we were testing them out for a while, but they're good to go now. So lucky users will get a promo code. Not everyone will get one, but keep an eye out for sure. And then also we are currently testing out our user reviews. A lot of movement this week, which is great. Our dev team have been amazing, and our CPO as well, getting this over the line. So we're super excited.
How did you start with New?
Oh, so I've kind of go back with New a while. So the co-founders are Aisling, who's our current CEO, and Ali Kelly. And we were all in Trinity at the same time. Although I didn't know Aisling, I knew Ali through like my flatmate. So when they were doing like their like literal like swap shops in real life in the basement of a club in Dublin, like I went to like one or two of those. And then after that, they kind of started progressing to like, I know they were doing Launchbox in Trinity and some other stuff like that. So then I kind of became more involved after a little bit of time. I think when Aisling was in the Enterprise Ireland New Frontiers program, and she wanted to do like an alpha, like her first trial, and it was when we were renting rather than swapping. And basically for Trinity Ball, they were getting people in Trinity that like had like a formal wear dress, because for Trinity Ball it's formal wear. And everyone like kind of basically put up their dress, and then they got to pick from one of the other dresses that other people were willing to like rent out. So that was literally the first trial, and I was helping like find the dresses, promote it on campus. There was a photo shoot. My friend Stephen, he's a photographer, he did some of the photo shoot for it. Then when COVID hit, I was furloughed for a little bit. So then I came back and like helped a little bit while I was furloughed. And then I went to France to do my MBA. And then at the end of my MBA, I had an MBA internship. So I came back into my internship with New. So I've been in and out of New in its various forms for several years, but only back again recently since like May.
That's like mad. You've like actually got to see it from like the beginning. Because when I joined, like Borrow was pretty much, it wasn't officially gone, but it was pretty much gone. Basically in COVID, I like started getting interested in like sustainable fashion a bit and was getting involved with like the Envirostock and Trinity. And then they had an online virtual swap with New. Loved the app. It was so good for like getting rid of clothes. Like I'm the type of user, like I just have too many clothes. So I tried to get rid of them. And then lucky enough, New had like offices like near Trinity. And then they had messaged me and another girl and were like, hey, you guys are in Trinity. Would you be interested in doing internship? Bear in mind, this is after I signed up for their brand ambassador program. Didn't just randomly email me. Sorry. And then got it. So I was steaming clothes and taking pictures. Yeah, I keep seeing this trend on TikTok and it's basically like, oh, like what your degree is and what you're doing now. And it's like literally like people will be doing like, yeah, I did maths. And then it's like, I'm being cute. Yeah, I did biology, and I'm like, yeah, I'm in a startup. It's great. It's fun. So how did you get interested in sustainable fashion?
Yeah, I think for me, it kind of came about probably when I was in Trinity as well. So that's probably what coincided with me getting involved with New. But for me, I was doing BEST, so it's like business. I had a module like business and society or something like that. So that's what kind of like started steering me in the direction of like corporate social responsibility and like within that sustainability. So I kind of went from there that I was interested more so in like things like tech for good, and like, you know, businesses using like the triple bottom line, which is like people, planet, profits, rather than just like, you know, going for like strictly monetary like targets. And I think with that, it kind of as well, the world started changing a lot in terms of how it viewed things like that. And you see things like the rise of B Corps and like the general tech for good movement. So I think I kind of came in from that angle rather than necessarily strictly sustainable fashion.
Yeah.
Like I like fashion as well. And even in my my jobs in London, I worked in marketing, and I worked for like some of my clients were luxury fashion brands. So like I have been involved in that end of it as well. So I think it was kind of like a matching of those two things together, which really led me to sustainable fashion.
So you were saying like you worked, like some of your clients were like luxury fashion. How do you see like the luxury fashion and sustainability world? How are they doing? Like, what do you think of all that?
Yeah, I mean, so it's strange because like they definitely are like going after it to a certain extent. Like you have brands like Stella McCartney, which are obviously like at the forefront of like sustainability in fashion, which is great because it's like a blueprint for the other luxury brands to kind of take note. And Stella used to be with Kering and then left, went briefly independent, and is now in LVMH. And I think the reason those big conglomerates wanted Stella McCartney in their like groups was strictly for sustainability and to be able to say as a group they're meeting certain sustainability targets or whatever. So I think that there is a movement towards it. And even we've seen it's not technically sustainability, but like the no fur in those designer like houses was like a bit of a thing. So like it is coming, but it is potentially a little bit slow. Like they're still doing lots of things that aren't necessarily super sustainable. It wasn't that long ago that Burberry were caught out for like burning all their excess stock. So I mean, you know, there is some progress, but also like there's definitely still like areas for improvement for sure.
Yeah, no, I was just asking because I guess like a big thing when we talk about like sustainable fashion, like is fast fashion. And it's interesting that you brought up like luxury fashion, and it's kind of like, because we don't really hear as much as what they're doing. It is in like all the blame gets focused on fast fashion. I think it's about 10% of global carbon emissions are down to the fashion industry, but we do always talk about this in relation to fast fashion.
It's all fashion. Like, I mean, obviously there's a very small percentage that is like sustainable fashion, but even that obviously still accounts and still contributes to a certain percentage of like pollution, greenhouse gas emissions, that sort of thing. But I think, yeah, like as in the focus is definitely on fast fashion in general. But also like the luxury brands, the thing is that they don't really have an excuse because they're expensive luxury items. So if there is anyone that should be able to build in sustainability, you know, into their like, you know, clothing, into their business models, it should be luxury fashion because they have those huge margins and like, you know, it is a luxury. And in a lot of ways, sustainability is still seen as a luxury, you know, like if you're low income and you're like, well, I can't afford to like have all these sustainable alternatives that are like priced at like a higher rate, which is why people say like, oh, that's why I buy from Shein because I'm poor, I don't have any money, like, you know what I mean? Whereas luxury fashion, if you are going to be a luxury, then it should also be like a luxury for the person, the planet. Like it shouldn't necessarily be, you know, still polluting the planet at the same rate or the same extent that like other cheaper price garments are, like, you know, like H&M or whatever.
Yeah, when I started my sustainable fashion journey, I think that was a big thing for me. I started on Depop and quickly found that any of the vintage sellers like were just so expensive for stuff that was fine, but it gave me like a bad like image of vintage fashion, and I was like, that's not my style, like it's not my thing. Purely because it was always these prints, random prints,
Shoulder pads,
and just like all these things, and I was like, it doesn't,
80s.
and I was like, it doesn't look great to me, but also like really, really expensive. And I actually do think, like, I understand like these sellers are like trying to make a living, a lot of them off this, but like I think it does give like secondhand clothes a bad name
as well. It's like it used to be the more affordable option to find things like thrift shops or even like, you know, vintage. There wasn't like that demand for it, so like prices were not cheaper for everyone. So the people buying it, you know what I mean, the people selling it. But because then it got trendy, which is obviously great because people became more aware about sustainable fashion and more aware about vintage, and like people were trying to promote that, which is great. But then it drove up the prices of that, and then that's made it now kind of inaccessible for a lot of people on the lower income level. And then that like paved the way for platforms like Shein to come in and sell things like super cheap. So there's always going to be a demand for like the lowest price, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
in fashion, also in other things, but there's always going to be demand at something that's the cheapest, which is why like new as an idea and as a concept like has the potential to be so big, because it's always going to be cheaper because it's a 99-cent transaction fee, and then like if you're paying for shipping, like whatever the shipping is on top of that. So I think that's the thing to bear in mind. It's that like, you know, it's the cheapest thing that like has a mass appeal, but like it's not always the best thing for the planet, which is the case of Shein. I mean, at least when thrift shops were like the cheapest kind of thing available, then it was like, oh, okay, then it's like as an added bonus that it's better for the planet to be recycling stuff already in use, rather than, you know, Shein is like just creating all stuff from like plastic fibers and like shipping it from China.
I know. And I have to admit, like before like I kind of like had any concept to do with sustainable fashion, like I did do an order with Shein. They just don't have a good fit. They either, you know, they'll be perfect on someone else, but it's just the fact that they're just not, I don't think the quality's great, the fit's not great, and I'm 5'2", which if there's any other short people out there, can be quite difficult. Like even with Zara, I find it impossible because they're, if I get a bodysuit, for example, like the back is so long, and I'm like, I can't do that, and then it just bunches at my stomach, and I'm like, oh, okay, no. So it's like, yeah, I think that's like one of my major issues with fast fashion. It's just the fitting is so bad.
It's so random, you know what I mean? Like a size, when even within H&M, I find like different garments are the same size, but just like vastly different.
Yeah, like the amount of like Zara trends I've seen, and it's like people are like holding up a pair of trousers that's like longer than them. And I remember I got it on Depop or something. I got a pair of like wide leg Zara trousers or jeans, and literally had to cut like that much off them. They were like, I was like, who is this for? Like, I mean, you just say tall on it. Like, why is this for, you know, for everybody? You should do like a petite, average, and a tall. Like we need it. New has the advantage of the fact that like it's so cheap, 99 cents, just then you just pay postage, even though there's been such funny comments on our TikTok and stuff about postage, and they're like, betcha it's like extortionate. And it's like, no, it's just normal postage.
I know, it's,
you
like
know,
we don't control the postal system.
and it's like, no, like we're not trying to scam you. It is just 99 cents. You know, like just upload your old clothes, like that is it. But like if you're ordering from Shein, it can take like 2-3 weeks for it to arrive. So, you know, it's kind of the same. So you may as well go the secondhand option. And most of the stuff you buy on Shein is you're just trying to, you know, you need to do something, and you're like, why not online shop? And then you get like that little boost in serotonin, and then you get it, and then you're like, ooh, and then that's it.
By the time it comes, you're like, what did I even do?
So why not like actually go on Pinterest, have a look at outfits that or styles you're into, find outfits that have some items already in your closet, and then if there is an item you really want, start your treasure hunt. Like go on you, and it is quite fun. Like obviously you need time for any sort of secondhand shopping, and I guess it's like that quickness is that like you can't just find it immediately. Might be the deterrent, but I mean, you'll probably spend hours on Shein anyway, trying to find something or trying to get that extra item to get free shipping. So you may as well put it into secondhand shopping. I actually can't believe it. I'm like, more Kardashian businesses. Like, what are they trying to do? They're literally trying to take over the world. I mean, I get it, I respect it, but it's also like,
because the thing is, no one knows if Kylie's new line, like if it, like what price point it's going to come in at, you know what I mean? Because basically as soon as she launched, everyone just started tearing it to shreds, from Kylie Swim, like how everyone paid like, you know, like it was maybe like $90 or something for like just more fast fashion, or is it going to be something a little bit like better quality, more high end?
Yeah, I remember that, and the fittings or something were like barely there basically. I think she'll try do something better, like higher end, but I don't know whether the quality will come through with that. But we have to remember, like, Kim has come a very long way with Skims.
Yes.
So, and from watching the Kardashians, they're really close now. So I wouldn't be surprised if the quality actually does end up being good. But at the same time, you know, their sustainability claims, if they make any, will, you know, not be accurate. Like, it's quite ironic. Like on the packaging for Skims, it literally has like, oh, like plastic free or something, and then it has a literal plastic sign on it.
Yeah, like the plastic recycling sign.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, you're plastic free, but you're doing that. So it's like, what else are they, you know, escaping? But it's exciting. The EU are bringing in a ban on certain terms to try and get rid of the greenwashing that all these fast fashion or just brands in general are throwing at us, and it's very misleading. So I mean, it'll be in the EU. So if they sell in the EU, they'll obviously have to change their packaging or anything to go with. So at least that's you know, the EU is a huge marketplace for any kind of world brand. So
yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how that kind of like goes to the rest of the world. Yeah, with GDPR, like it's the EU that was really leading that and protecting data, and like there's legislation like that all over the world now. Like I think the EU is still the most stringent, and in the US it's like it's on state level, so certain states have like kind of data protection stuff and others less so. It'll be interesting to see if something similar happens with the new legislation about greenwashing.
Yeah, hopefully, because it is like a really big thing.
I mean, it's been needed for so long.
Oh my God, like to be fair, like the amount of stuff I probably spent money on at the start of my kind of like, you know, being more aware of like the climate crisis and all of that sort of stuff, like it's probably ridiculous. Because anything, like you could just like label on like, oh, it's like eco-friendly or like biodegradable, and you kind of go with it. You're kind of like, okay, yeah, because like you're trying to do good, and then you slowly realize and you're like, oh, a compostable coffee cup doesn't mean you can actually put it in your composting. It needs to be in like a special facility that will break it down. And you're like, oh, okay, what's the point then? What should it not just be a recyclable coffee cup? At least that can go in your recycling bin, you know? So I think it's really, really important, because if you start in this journey, like you are just going to be like, okay, yeah, I'm going to buy that because it says it. Why would it lie to me? And then the more you know about the industry, you're like, oh, okay, no.
You kind of assume as well that you're like, surely that's illegal, or surely there are certain regulations or whatever on something like that. But like, it's just been really slow to catch up.
Very, very, very slow. So it'll be interesting to see how that like comes through. But I'm excited for it, because it needs to, like, you know, some of these brands need to be held accountable.
I mean, like H&M, it comes from Sweden, like Zara comes from Spain, like they're big European brands, you know, and they're some of the worst offenders. So it's good that it's coming from Europe first.
Yeah, the organic cotton is what always kills me, because at the start I was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna buy organic cotton. And my thought process was like, okay, if I buy this, that means I'm supporting the organic cotton, which means, you know, drive demand, right? But like, it doesn't 110% work like that. So, and like organic cotton, it's still like requires a huge amount of water to actually be produced. Like either way, organic cotton cultivation requires an average of only 1,100 liters of water per t-shirt, reducing the use of drinking water by more than half. However, almost more important than water consumption during cultivation is a closed water cycle in the subsequent production stages. So even though I think growing it requires less, it then requires a huge amount when it's actually being like produced and stuff like that. So it's not the solution that Primark and H&M were hoping for. Let's talk about Kourtney and Boohoo. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, like it doesn't really make any sense, but they could have put anyone in that role. You know what I mean? It was never going to be legitimate. It didn't necessarily matter who the face was. It's ridiculous that they kind of have a celebrity sustainability ambassador. It would have been much better if they actually employed someone who knows anything about sustainability and could, like, implement changes in their, like, you know, supply chain. So yeah, I mean, again, it's just greenwashing. It's just they've like have her as an ambassador, and they decided to stick in the word sustainability because they know, like, you know, research shows Gen Z are like more interested in sustainability. So they're like, okay, we got it. We'll get a Kardashian as an ambassador and use the word sustainability. Done.
It's just so lazy. It's just like no care, I guess, for us and the planet. When they do, they definitely have the money. 1,000% they have the money to do something rather than hire Kourtney Kardashian. They could actually just put the money into actually trying to be more sustainable.
Yeah, because as well, wasn't it Boohoo? I'm not sure if it was Boohoo or Pretty Little Thing, but they had the scandal not that long ago that they were employing people in the UK for below minimum wage, like
God.
farm workers. Yeah,
To be honest, it's probably both of them.
yeah, yeah.
Let's be real. It's like actually shocked when I found this. Like I actually just could not get over it. Yeah, it was in 2022, the global apparel market generated a revenue of $1.53 trillion. Like that is the amount of money, and yet garment workers are still not being paid a living wage in the majority. Like
It's just like the complexity of like a global supply chain that legislation just can't like do what it needs to do to get it there.
Did you hear about the H&M AirTag Ghana scandal?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think in general, there's been a lot of questions about like people donating clothes, whether it's in one of those bins in like fast fashion places like H&M that have them, or if it's in like general charity shops. Like I know in Dublin, for example, there's so many charity shops, and like a lot of them are really great. You'll find some like amazing stuff in there. And I think there's such a culture in Ireland anyway of like donating your clothes to charity shops when you're like clearing out your wardrobe, or if you're moving, or like whatever, which is great. And I think like obviously that's coming from people wanting to do some good with the clothes they have rather than just like throw it straight to landfill or whatever. But I think because it's become such like a cultural norm and it's become so popular that like the charity shops just don't have the infrastructure to deal with all of the donations that they get. So like a big percentage of that ends up being like either sent to textile recycling or getting incinerated or like transported to like some developing nation and like sold in their local like clothing markets. Obviously like crowds out their like own like kind of artisan, like, you know, people who are making clothes or in that general industry in their country, because people know they'll just buy like these like cheap secondhand clothes from countries like Ireland, the UK, the US, wherever. And I think so charity shops are like, they're coming at it from like a good angle. They want to raise money for charity and they want like to help recirculate some of these clothes, but they're just not necessarily set up for the volume that they get. And also like charity shop stores are like physical stores, and like there's a huge shift towards people like buying stuff online. So like again, the structure isn't there for charity shops to do that. But with places like H&M that have those bins, like it's just very disingenuous. Like they know they're not going to be able to recycle a lot of those clothes. Like they manufacture those clothes. They know that the fibers in their clothes, if they're like mixed, it's extremely hard to recycle them. They 100% have all that knowledge and know exactly that before they ever introduce any of those bins. So it's very much like, again, a greenwashing technique. So at least with charity shops, like they're doing the best they can, and at least they're raising some money from charity. H&M are just, it's just a marketing activity. It's just greenwashing.
I know. In a way, though, it's like so strange to me because I'm just like, you're also making more work for yourselves. In regards to like offering a scheme, you know, just to look good, and then they're still transporting all those clothes abroad to just drop them, dump them in on, like, you know, it's bizarre.
More cost effective for them to like ship them to like, I don't know, the desert in Chile or Ghana or wherever than it is to actually do the work and like recycle them or try and recirculate them in some way.
The clothes that have been dumped in the Atacama Desert are literally like visible from space. Mad. It's mad. There are way too many clothes in this world. Like literally way too many. You know, go on about new again. I think it is like, it's just a great other option. Rather than just like dumping your clothes to a charity shop, you know, that probably don't have the capacity to store them. You know, I think it is a good option that if you do have a few, you know, certain things that you think, hey, someone else could wear them, they're in good quality, you know, upload them to new, you get coins, you can then, you know, request a new item for yourself and your wardrobe. I do think it's like, it's a really good way to go about it. And I think just more people just need to be aware.